The view screen showed 300 warships hanging in the darkness of space. Commander Daniel Pierce stood on the bridge of Terra 9 station and watched them. The ships belonged to the Kthrian Empire, the largest power in the known galaxy. They had arrived at the border of human space 6 hours ago. Captain Lisa Garrett stood beside him. She looked at the tactical display and shook her head. "That's more firepower than our entire fleet combined," she said. Daniel nodded. He had been counting. 300 ships against the 15 patrol vessels humanity had stationed at this border. The numbers were not in their favor. They had never been in humanity's favor when it came to dealing with the old galactic powers. "Commander, incoming transmission," the communications officer called out. "It's from the Kthrian flagship." "Ote, put it through," Daniel said. The view screen changed. A tall figure appeared, wearing robes that shimmered with colors humans had no names for. Ambassador Thelvax of the Kthrian Empire looked down at Daniel with eyes that held no warmth. "I am Ambassador Thelvax, representative of Emperor Kthral VII, ruler of 847 star systems." The ambassador's voice came through the translator with perfect clarity. "The Kthrian Empire requires passage through your territory. We must reach the outer rim sectors to deal with rebels who threaten the peace of the galaxy." Daniel kept his face neutral. "Ambassador, human space does not permit military fleets to cross our borders." Thelvax tilted his head. The gesture looked wrong on his alien frame. "You misunderstand your position, Commander. We are not asking for permission. We are informing you of our intentions. Your species has been spacefaring for what, 80 years? You control 12 systems. The Kthrian Empire has ruled the stars for 1,000 years. That may be true," Daniel said. "But this is human space. Our laws apply here." The ambassador made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "Your laws. Commander, look at your screens. Count our ships. We have brought this fleet as a courtesy, to ensure safe passage through your territory. Do not mistake courtesy for weakness." Lisa touched Daniel's arm. Her face showed concern. The ambassador was right about the numbers. 15 patrol ships could not stop 300 warships. Everyone on the bridge knew it. "I need to consult with Terran Command," Daniel said. "You have 24 hours, Thelvax replied. "After that, we will proceed with or without your blessing. The Empire does not wait for lesser species to make decisions." The screen went dark. The bridge was silent. Daniel turned to Lisa. "Get me Admiral Morrison. Priority channel." It took 15 minutes to establish the connection. Admiral Kyle Morrison appeared on a smaller screen. He looked tired. The man had been dealing with the Kthrian situation since their fleet first entered the outer territories. "I saw the transmission," Morrison said before Daniel could speak. "They sent the same message to Earth." "What are our orders, sir?" Daniel asked. Morrison leaned forward. "The council met 3 hours ago. We had representatives from every colony, every station, every settlement humanity has established in space. The vote was unanimous, Commander. No passage. Not for the Kthrians, not for anyone who wants to bring an army through our space." Daniel felt something settle in his chest. "Understood, sir. But they have 300 ships. I know the numbers, Commander. I helped count them." Morrison's face was hard. "But here's what matters. 80 years ago, we left Earth and found a galaxy full of empires. Every single one of them told us where we could go and where we couldn't. They told us which systems we could settle and which were off limits. They made rules for us without asking what we wanted. Sir, I understand the principle. But, let me finish," Morrison said. "We spent 80 years building our small piece of space. We followed their rules. We stayed quiet. We learned. And do you know what we learned, Commander? We learned that these empires, these 1,000-year-old powers, they've forgotten what it means to be told no. They've forgotten that borders mean something. That sovereignty matters." Daniel looked at the tactical display. 300 ships. They'll force their way through. "Maybe," Morrison said. "Or maybe they'll learn something new." "You have your orders, Commander." No passage. Deliver the message and hold the line. Morrison out. The screen went dark. Daniel stood there for a moment, then turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. Prepare a response to the Kthrians. Lisa stepped closer. Daniel, we can't stop them. You know that. I know, he said. But we can tell them no. That has to mean something. The next 20 hours passed slowly. The Kthrian fleet held position at the border. Their ships ran patrol patterns, showing off their strength. Occasionally, one would drift closer to human space, testing the boundaries. Daniel spent the time reviewing Terra 9's defenses. They had orbital platforms armed with missiles and railguns. They had 15 patrol ships, each carrying fighters. They had the station itself, which mounted defensive weapons. All of it together might delay the Kthrian fleet for an hour, maybe 2. Commander, Lisa said. She had been working at her station for the past 6 hours. I've been running simulations. If they come through, we can't stop them. But we can make them pay for it. Daniel looked at her screens. She had worked out firing solutions, retreat patterns, every possible defensive strategy. How many do we take with us? Maybe 10 of their ships, she said quietly, before they overwhelm us. 10 ships out of 300. It was something. Not much, but something. The 24-hour deadline arrived. Daniel stood on the bridge and watched the chronometer count down. When it reached 0, he opened a channel to the Kthrian flagship. Thelvax appeared on screen. Commander Pierce, I trust you have reconsidered your position, Ambassador, Daniel said. His voice was calm. Terran Command has reviewed your request. The answer is no. You may not cross human space with your fleet. The ambassador stared at him. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Thelvax leaned forward. You cannot be serious. We have 300 warships. You have 15 patrol boats and a station. This is not a negotiation. You're right, Daniel said. It's not a negotiation. It's a statement of fact. This is human space. Our borders are closed to military fleets. You will not pass. Then we will take passage by force, Thelvax said. You can try, Daniel replied. But understand this, Ambassador. If you cross that border, you are invading human territory, and humanity will respond accordingly. Thelvax made that laughing sound again. With 15 ships? Commander, you are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Daniel said. But the answer remains no. He closed the channel. The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at him. All hands to battle stations, Daniel said quietly. Launch the fighters. Power up all defensive systems. If they cross that border, we make them regret it. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. On the view screen, the Kthrian fleet began to move into an attack formation. 300 ships, all pointing toward human space. Daniel watched them come and did not look away. The fighters launched from Terra, 9 inches, waves of 6. Lieutenant Brandon Cole led the first squadron, his fighter slipping free of the station's launch bay and into the black. Behind him came 39 more pilots, forming up in defensive patterns around the station. Brandon checked his displays. 300 Kthrian warships faced them. His 40 fighters would last maybe 10 minutes in a real fight. He keyed his comm. Shadow Squadron, stay tight. Watch your spacing. If this goes hot, we make every shot count. Acknowledgements came back from his pilots. Good people. All of them. They knew the odds. They were here anyway. On Terra 9, engineer Michelle Santos worked in the lower sections of the station. She had pulled every technician she could find to help with the defensive grid. The station's weapons were old, designed for pirate raids and border skirmishes. Nothing about them was meant to face a fleet this size. Reroute power from the civilian sectors, Michelle said, checking readouts on her tablet. I want every defensive platform at full capacity. And someone figure out why Platform 7 is showing a targeting drift. Already on it, a technician called back. Bad sensor node. We're swapping it now, Michelle nodded and moved to the next station. They had 12 orbital platforms positioned around Terra 9. Each one carried missiles and railguns. Together they formed a defensive sphere that could hold off a dozen ships, maybe 24 if the crews were good. Not 300. She pushed the thought away and kept working. If Commander Pierce was going to hold the line, then she would give him every weapon they had. On the bridge, Daniel watched the Kthrian fleet complete its formation. The ships had arranged themselves into 3 groups. The first group, about 100 vessels, began moving toward the border. The other 2 groups held back, watching. "They're testing us," Lisa said from her station. "The Vanguard will probe our defenses. When they see how weak we are, the rest will follow." Daniel nodded. "Show them we're serious. Target the lead ship. Lock all weapons." "Sir, if we fire first." "We won't fire first," Daniel said. "But they need to see we're ready. That we're committed." The tactical board lit up with targeting solutions. Every weapons platform, every ship, every fighter squadron locked onto the Kthrian Vanguard. It would not be enough to stop them, but it would hurt them. Aboard the Kthrian flagship, Fleet Marshal Vornath watched the human response with interest. The station had armed its weapons. The fighters had formed defensive lines. The patrol ships had positioned themselves between the Vanguard and the station. "They mean to fight," his tactical officer said. "Of course they do," Vornath replied. "Humans are known for their stubbornness. It is one of their few notable qualities." He gestured to the screen. "How long until we overwhelm them?" "Less than an hour, Marshal. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are small. We will sweep through them like dust." Vornath nodded. "Proceed with the advance. Demonstrate overwhelming force. When they see the futility of resistance, they will stand aside." The Vanguard moved forward. 100 ships, each 3 times the size of a human patrol vessel. Their weapons powered up, shields glowing in the darkness. Daniel watched them come. His hand hovered over the weapons release. "Not yet. Not until they cross the border. But soon." "Commander, I'm detecting something," Lisa said. She frowned at her displays. "There are quantum signatures all along the border, hundreds of them." "What kind of signatures?" Daniel asked. "I'm not sure. They're spread out over several light years. Whatever they are, they've been there for a while. Maybe weeks." Daniel felt something stir in his memory. Weeks ago, Terran Command had sent ships through this sector. No one had explained why. He had assumed it was routine patrol work. Maybe it wasn't routine. "Keep monitoring those signatures," he said, "and prepare to." The Kthrian Vanguard crossed the border. For a moment, nothing happened. The ships continued forward, engines burning bright. Then, one by one, their lights began to flicker. Aboard the lead Kthrian vessel, alarms started screaming. The captain stared at his displays as system after system failed. Navigation went offline. Weapons powered down. Life support dropped to backup mode. "What's happening?" he shouted. "Unknown." "Captain," his engineer replied, working frantically at his console. "We're experiencing cascading failures across all systems. It's like something is interfering with our quantum processors." "Get us back across the border," the captain ordered, but the engines wouldn't respond. The ship drifted forward, powerless, carried by its own momentum into human space. On Terra 9, Lisa's eyes went wide. "Commander, you need to see this." The tactical display showed the Kthrian Vanguard in chaos. Ships were losing power. Some had stopped moving entirely. Others were spinning out of control as their navigation systems failed. "What did we do?" Daniel asked. "We didn't do anything," Lisa said. She pulled up the quantum signatures. "But these did." "Commander, those signatures aren't sensor buoys. They're disruption nodes. Someone built a quantum disruption field along the entire border." Daniel stared at the display. A quantum disruption field. It would interfere with the advanced systems that the Kthrian ships relied on. Their quantum processors, their power distribution, their navigation computers. all of it would fail inside the field. "How long has this been here?" he asked. "At least 3 weeks," Lisa said. "Maybe longer. Someone from Terran Command set this up. They knew the Kthrians were coming." Brandon watched from his fighter as the Kthrian ships went dark. 3 were completely dead in space. The others were trying to back away from the border, their movements clumsy and slow. "Shadow Lead, are you seeing this?" one of his pilots asked. "I see it," Brandon replied. "Hold position. Do not advance. Let them figure out what just happened." On the Kthrian flagship, Fleet Marshal Vornath stood frozen. His tactical officer was speaking rapidly, but Vornath barely heard him. He watched the Vanguard twist and drift in human space, helpless. "Pull them back," he said quietly. "Sir?" "Pull them back," Vornath shouted. "Order the Vanguard to retreat. Now." The orders went out. The Kthrian ships that still had power began backing away from the border. It took 30 minutes to recover the 3 ships that had gone completely dead. They had to be towed by their sister vessels, dragged back across the border like broken toys. Ambassador Thelvax appeared on the bridge. "What happened?" "The humans have some kind of defensive field," Vornath said. "It shuts down our systems. Any ship that enters their space becomes helpless." "That's impossible," Thelvax said. "They're a new species. They don't have that kind of technology." "Apparently they do," Vornath replied. He looked at the tactical display. The field appears to span their entire border. Light years of coverage. That level of deployment requires massive resources and planning. Thelvax stared at the screen. "How do we get through?" "We don't," Vornath said flatly. "Not without losing ships. Maybe a lot of ships. If we push through in force, we'll have hundreds of vessels dead in space, drifting helplessly while the humans destroy them at their leisure." "Then what do you suggest?" Vornath turned to face the ambassador. "I suggest we reconsider this entire operation." On Terra 9, Daniel watched the Kthrian fleet pull back from the border. The 3 damaged ships were being towed away. The rest of the Vanguard had retreated to a safe distance. "They're regrouping," Lisa said, trying to figure out what went wrong. Daniel nodded slowly. Someone at Terran Command had planned this. They had built a defensive field that turned the Kthrians' advanced technology against them. The more sophisticated their systems, the more vulnerable they were. "Sir, incoming transmission," the communications officer said. "It's Commander Pierce, from the Kthrian flagship." "Put it through," Daniel said. Vornath's face appeared on screen. The fleet marshal looked older than Daniel had expected. His eyes held the weight of many battles. "Commander Pierce," Vornath said, "it appears we underestimated your defenses." "It appears you did," Daniel replied. "This changes nothing. We still require passage through your space." Daniel shook his head. "The answer is still no, Marshal. You've seen what happens when your ships cross our border. I imagine you've calculated how many vessels you would lose if you pushed through in force." Vornath was quiet for a moment. "Many. We would lose many." "Then I suggest you find another route," Daniel said. "Human space is closed to your fleet." He ended the transmission. Around him, the bridge crew began to cheer. They had done it. They had held the line without firing a shot. But Daniel didn't cheer. He looked at the 300 ships still gathered at the border and wondered what they would do next. The Kthrian fleet held position for 6 hours. During that time, Daniel received reports from all along the border. Other Kthrian ships had attempted to probe the quantum field at different points. Every attempt ended the same way. Their systems failed. Their ships went dark. Lieutenant Eric Bennett worked in the intelligence section of Terra 9. He had been monitoring Kthrian communications since they arrived. Now he brought his findings to the bridge. "Commander, you need to hear this," Eric said. He played back a recording. The voices were translated from Kthrian, but the emotion came through clearly. "They're panicking," Daniel said. "Yes, sir," Eric replied. "Their engineers can't figure out how to counter the field. Everything they try fails, and their political officer, Councillor Mixara, is demanding they withdraw before they lose more ships." Lisa looked up from her station. "How bad is it for them politically?" Very bad, Eric said. The Kthrian Empire rules through strength. If word spreads that they were stopped by a species with 12 systems, it undermines their entire power structure. Other species might start questioning their authority. Daniel nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand what Terran Command had done. They had not just built a defense. They had built a trap. A trap that used the Kthrians' own arrogance against them. On the Kthrian flagship, Fleet Marshal Vornath stood before a holographic display showing the quantum field. His engineers had spent hours analyzing it. The conclusions were not good. The field is continuous, his chief engineer said. It spans at least 3 light-years along the human border. Possibly more. We cannot find a gap or weakness. Can we disrupt it? Vornath asked. Not without entering it, Marshal. And any ship that enters becomes helpless within minutes. Our quantum processors simply cannot function inside that field. Counselor Mixara spoke up. She was the Empire's political observer, sent to ensure this mission succeeded. Marshal, this is unacceptable. We cannot allow a minor species to dictate terms to the Empire. The Emperor expects us to complete this mission. The Emperor expects us to succeed without losing the fleet, Vornath replied. If we force our way through that field, we will have hundreds of dead ships floating in human space. The humans can then destroy them at their leisure. Is that the victory the Emperor wants? Mixara had no answer to that. Ambassador Thelvax entered the command center. I have been in contact with the human commander again. He remains firm in his position. No passage will be granted. Then we use overwhelming force, Mixara said. We send all 300 ships through at once. Even with the field active, sheer numbers will carry us through. Vornath shook his head. You don't understand. This isn't a weapon we can overwhelm with numbers. It's a field effect. Every ship that enters loses power. 300 ships, or 3,000. The result is the same. They all become helpless. So what do you suggest? Thelvax asked. I suggest we withdraw, Vornath said. We find another route to the outer rim. It will take longer, but we'll arrive with our fleet intact. Unacceptable, Mixara said. The Empire does not retreat from inferior species. The Empire also does not waste 300 warships on pride, Vornath replied. While the Kthrians argued, Daniel received new orders from Admiral Morrison. The transmission came through on the secure channel. Commander Pierce, good work holding the line, Morrison said. Now, I need you to understand what comes next. The Kthrians are trying to decide whether to retreat or push through anyway. We need them to retreat. Understood, sir. But I'm not sure what more we can do. The field is already stopping them. The field stops their technology, Morrison said. But pride might make them try anyway. They might decide to send ships through on emergency power, accepting losses to prove a point. We can't let that happen. Hi. Creasy. Why not, sir? If they want to waste ships, because then we'd have to destroy those ships, Morrison interrupted. And that means casualties. Kthrian casualties. Right now, we've stopped them without killing anyone. That's important, Daniel. That's the whole point. We want the galaxy to see that humanity can defend itself without becoming the aggressor. Daniel understood. You want them to choose retreat on their own. Exactly. They need to see that forcing passage isn't just dangerous. It's pointless. Make them understand that. How do I do that, sir? Morrison smiled. You're a smart man, Commander. You'll figure it out. Morrison out. Daniel stood on the bridge and thought. The Kthrians needed to see that crossing human space was pointless. Not dangerous. Pointless. There was a difference. Lisa, can we enhance the quantum field? He asked. What do you mean? Make it stronger. Show them that even emergency power won't help. That nothing will help. Lisa worked at her console for several minutes. Maybe. If we adjust the field generators along Sector 7, we can create a demonstration zone. The field there would be twice as strong as normal. Any ship entering it would lose all power instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. Do it, Daniel said. And then invite the Kthrians to test it. An hour later, Daniel transmitted to the Kthrian flagship. Vornath appeared on screen, looking tired. "Marshal, I want to show you something," Daniel said. "We've prepared a demonstration. A single sector of space where the quantum field is at maximum strength. I'm sending you the coordinates. You can send a probe through. See for yourself what happens." Vornath studied him. "Why would you do this?" "Because I want you to understand," Daniel said simply. "There's no way through. Not with force. Not with technology. Not with numbers. The field is absolute. I'm showing you this so you can make an informed decision." The transmission ended. On the Kthrian flagship, Vornath looked at his staff. "Prepare a probe. Let's see what the humans are offering." The Kthrian probe was an advanced piece of equipment. It carried every sensor and communication system the Empire had developed. They launched it toward the coordinates Daniel had provided. The probe entered the enhanced field and died instantly. Every system went offline at once. It became a dead piece of metal, drifting in space. "Scan it," Vornath ordered. The engineers examined the probe with long-range sensors. After several minutes, the chief engineer looked up. "Marshal, it's completely dead. Every quantum processor is offline. Every power cell is drained. If that had been a ship with crew, they would have lost life support immediately." Vornath nodded slowly. He turned to Mixara. "You see? This is what you want me to send our fleet through. 300 ships would become 300 coffins." Mixara stared at the dead probe. For the first time, she looked uncertain. On Terra 9, Lieutenant Eric Bennett was monitoring Kthrian communications again. He heard the arguments growing louder. Some officers wanted to retreat. Others insisted they push through, regardless of cost. The debate was tearing the command staff apart. Then a new transmission arrived. It came from the Kthrian homeworld, directly from the Emperor's palace. Eric didn't have clearance to decrypt it, but he could see the effect it had on the fleet. "Commander, something's changed," Eric said. "The Kthrians just received orders from home. The fleet is standing down." Daniel watched the tactical display. The Kthrian ships were powering down their weapons. Their attack formation was dissolving. Slowly, carefully, the entire fleet began to turn away from the border. "They're leaving," Lisa said quietly. "Not all of them," Daniel replied. "Look at the flagship." One ship remained near the border. After a moment, a transmission request came through. Daniel accepted it. Ambassador Thelvax appeared on screen. The ambassador looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. "Commander Pierce," Thelvax said, "the Kthrian Empire acknowledges that passage through human space is not possible at this time. We will seek an alternative route." "I appreciate your understanding, Ambassador," Daniel said. "Understand this as well, Commander. The Empire has a long memory. Today we retreat, but this will not be forgotten." Daniel met the ambassador's gaze. "Neither will the fact that you respected our border, Ambassador. That also will be remembered." Thelvax inclined his head slightly. It might have been a gesture of respect, or it might have been acknowledgement of a difficult truth. Then the transmission ended. The Kthrian fleet began its departure. 300 ships, turning away from human space. Not a single shot had been fired. Not a single life had been lost. On the bridge of Terra 9, the crew watched in silence as the massive fleet withdrew. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Soon the entire bridge was applauding. Daniel didn't join them. He stood at the window and watched the Kthrian ships fade into the distance. They had won today. But the galaxy was watching, and the galaxy would have questions. Questions about humanity. Questions about the quiet species that had said no to the Empire. Questions about what else humans might be hiding behind their small borders. The game had changed. Daniel knew that. The rules that had governed galactic politics for 1,000 years had just been rewritten, and humanity had done the rewriting. He wondered if they were ready for what came next. Admiral Kyle Morrison arrived at Terra 9:30 hours after the Kthrian fleet withdrew. He brought 80 ships with him. The Terran Second Fleet, It was the largest concentration of human military power in one place since the colonial wars 20 years ago. Daniel met him in the station's command center. Morrison looked around at the displays showing the border region, now empty of Kthrian ships. "You did well, Commander," Morrison said. "Better than we hoped." "The quantum field did the work, sir," Daniel replied. "Someone at command knew this was coming. They prepared the trap weeks in advance." Morrison nodded. "Months, actually. We've been watching the Kthrians for half a year. Their intelligence isn't as good as they think. We knew they were planning to cross our space. We just didn't know when. So you built the field." "We built several fields," Morrison said, "along every border we have. The Kthrians aren't the only empire that thinks they can cross human space whenever they want. We decided it was time to teach them all a lesson about sovereignty." Daniel walked to a viewport. Outside, Morrison's fleet hung in formation, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. "What happens now, sir?" "The Kthrians won't forget this. Neither will the other powers." "No, they won't," Morrison agreed. "Which is why we need to understand what we're dealing with." He pulled up a holographic display. "This is analyst Nicole Crawford. She's been studying the Kthrian Empire for 10 years. She has some insights I think you should hear." A woman appeared on the display. She looked young, but her eyes were sharp. "Commander Pierce, I've been reviewing the Kthrian communications during the standoff. Lieutenant Bennett did excellent work collecting them." "What did you find?" Daniel asked. "The Kthrians are facing internal problems," Nicole said. "Serious problems. The Empire controls 847 systems, but that control is starting to slip. Several border regions are in revolt. Political factions are fighting for power. The Emperor's authority is weakening." Morrison gestured to the display. "Tell him about the Outer Rim." Nicole changed the image. It showed a cluster of star systems on the far side of Kthrian space. "This is where the Kthrians wanted to go. The Outer Rim sectors. They told you it was about rebels. That's partly true, but the real story is more complex. The Outer Rim is controlled by the Emperor's political rivals, powerful families that want to replace him. The fleet you faced was supposed to crush them before they could organize a real challenge." Daniel understood. "So this wasn't just about crossing our space. This was about internal politics." "Exactly," Nicole said. "And by stopping them, we didn't just defend our border. We prevented the Emperor from consolidating his power. His rivals now have more time to organize. The Empire is fracturing, and we just accelerated the process." "Unintentionally," Daniel said. "Does it matter?" Morrison asked. "The result is the same. The Empire is weaker, and other species are taking notice." He pulled up another display. This one showed communication intercepts from across the galaxy, messages between different alien species, all discussing the Kthrian retreat. "Word spread fast," Morrison said. "Within hours, every major power knew what happened here. A human commander told the Kthrian Empire to turn around. And they did. No battle. No compromise. Just a simple no that couldn't be crossed." Daniel read through some of the intercepts. Some species were impressed. Others were worried. A few were calculating how they might use this information to their advantage. "The galaxy is watching us now," Morrison said. "They want to know what else we're capable of, what other surprises we have hidden. And they want to know if we'll use the same tactics against them." "Will we?" Daniel asked. "Only if they try to cross our borders uninvited," Morrison replied. "That's the message we need to send. Human space is sovereign. All peaceful travelers are welcome. But no armies. No military fleets demanding passage. Not anymore." Nicole spoke up again. "Commander, there's something else you should know. The Kthrian ambassador, Thelvax, sent a private message after the fleet withdrew. It was addressed to you personally." "What did it say?" Nicole played the recording. Thelvax's voice came through. Translated but still carrying emotion. Commander Pierce, I have served the Empire for 40 years. I have negotiated with hundreds of species across the galaxy. I have seen empires rise and fall. Today, I learned something new. I learned that strength is not just about weapons or numbers. It is about knowing when to say no and having the will to enforce that decision. Your species has shown both. The Empire will remember this. I will remember this. Perhaps we underestimated humanity. That was our mistake. We will not make it again. The message ended. Daniel stood quietly for a moment. That almost sounded like respect. It was respect, Morrison said. Respect, earned the hard way. By standing firm, when it would have been easier to step aside. Over the next several hours, Daniel received briefings on the political situation. The Kthrian Empire was not the only power in the galaxy. There were dozens of others, each with their own interests and agendas. The standoff at the border had shifted the balance between them all. The Vren Collective sent diplomatic messages expressing interest in trade agreements with humanity. The Saurian Commonwealth requested a meeting to discuss mutual defense pacts. The Archon Federation asked for technical specifications on the quantum field, offering substantial payment for the information. Everyone wants something, Daniel observed. Everyone always wants something, Morrison replied. The question is what we want, what humanity wants. I think we've made that clear, Daniel said. We want our space to be ours. We want to be left alone to grow and develop on our own terms. That's what we wanted when we had 12 systems and no one paid attention to us, Morrison said. But now we've shown we can stand up to the major powers. That changes things. We can't just be left alone anymore. The galaxy won't allow it. Daniel looked out at the stars. So, what do? We adapt, Morrison said. We make alliances with species who share our values. We trade with those who respect our sovereignty. And we maintain our defenses so that no one forgets what happens when they try to push us around. The field won't work forever, Daniel said. Eventually, someone will figure out how to counter it. Probably, Morrison agreed. But by then, we'll have something else. That's what these 80 years have been about, Commander. Not just exploring space or settling colonies. We've been learning, studying, preparing for the day when we'd have to defend ourselves against powers that have ruled the galaxy for centuries. Today proved we can do it. Later, Daniel stood on the observation deck with Lisa. They watched Morrison's fleet conducting maneuvers near the border. The ships moved in precise formations, showing off capabilities that most of the galaxy hadn't seen before. It's strange, Lisa said. We won without fighting. But it feels like everything just got more complicated. Because it did, Daniel replied. Before, we were a minor species. No one cared what we did. Now we're a species that stopped the Kthrian Empire. Everyone cares what we do next. Are you worried? Daniel thought about that. Yes and no. I'm worried about the attention, the expectations, the fact that other species might test us just to see if we can do it again. But I'm also hopeful. For the first time since we left Earth, we're not asking permission to exist in this galaxy. We're claiming our place. That matters. Lisa nodded. Lieutenant Bennett showed me some of the alien communications. Some of them are calling us the quiet strength. The species that doesn't boast or threaten, but stands absolutely firm when challenged. I can live with that, Daniel said. A message came through on his communicator. It was from communications. Commander, we're receiving requests from 17 different species asking to visit Terra 9. They want to see the border defenses. Meet with human representatives. Some of them are offering very generous terms. Daniel smiled slightly. Tell them we'll review each request individually. And remind them that visits require advance notice and approval from Terran Command. Our borders are still closed to uninvited guests. Yes, sir. The communication ended. Lisa looked at him. 17 species. That's more than we've had diplomatic contact with in the past decade. Word travels fast, Daniel said. Especially when it's interesting word. We're interesting now. We need to be careful about how we handle that. Do you think the Kthrians will come back? Lisa asked. Daniel looked at the empty space where their fleet had been. Maybe. Probably not the same way, though. They learned their lesson. But empires don't like being embarrassed. Eventually, they'll want to restore their reputation. When they do, we need to be ready. We will be, Lisa said with confidence. Daniel hoped she was right. They had won today's challenge. But the galaxy was full of challenges. Some would be military. Some would be political. Some would be threats they couldn't even imagine yet. But humanity had survived worse. They had left their homeworld and carved out a place among the stars. They had faced the reality of alien empires and refused to be intimidated. They had drawn a line and held it. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way. Together, united, and absolutely unwilling to back down. The border was secure, the line had held, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 weeks passed after the Kthrian fleet withdrew. During that time, the galaxy transformed around humanity. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence now sent diplomatic missions. Trade requests flooded Terran command. And everywhere, people were talking about the quiet species that had said no to an empire. Lieutenant Amanda Foster worked in the communications center of Terra 9. She had been a minor officer before the standoff. Now she processed hundreds of messages every day from across the galaxy. "Commander, you need to see this," Amanda said, bringing a tablet to Daniel on the bridge. "We're getting reports from our monitoring stations. The Kthrian Empire is having serious problems." Daniel took the tablet and read through the reports. Over the past 3 weeks, 6 border systems had declared independence from the Empire. Political fighting had broken out on the homeworld. The Emperor's rivals were openly challenging his authority. "All because they couldn't cross our space?" Daniel asked. "All because everyone saw them turn away," Amanda replied. The Empire's power was built on the belief that no one could stand against them. We broke that belief. Now other species are testing them, pushing back in ways they never dared before. This, Daniel handed back the tablet. "That's not what we intended." "No," Amanda agreed. "But it's what happened anyway." Lisa joined them at the command station. "Sir, Admiral Morrison is requesting a conference. He wants you to participate in something he's calling the Border Accords." "What are the Border Accords?" "A meeting of multiple species," Lisa said. "Morrison is inviting everyone who wants to establish formal borders and sovereignty agreements. He's using what happened here as the foundation for a new approach to galactic politics." Daniel felt the weight of that. "We're trying to change how the entire galaxy operates. Someone has to," Lisa said. "The old system was based on the strong, doing whatever they wanted. Maybe it's time for something different." The conference took place 2 weeks later on a neutral station in the Vren sector. Daniel attended as humanity's representative for border operations. He found himself in a large chamber with delegates from 40 different species. Admiral Morrison stood at the center of the room. "Thank you all for coming. I know many of you have traveled far. Some of you represent major powers. Others represent smaller civilizations like humanity. But you all have something in common. You all want your space to be respected, your borders to mean something." Murmurs of agreement came from around the room. Morrison continued. "For too long, the galaxy has operated under the rule of the powerful. If you had a large fleet, you could go wherever you wanted. If you were strong enough, you made the rules. But strength alone isn't enough to build a stable galaxy. We need structure. We need agreements. We need borders that everyone respects." A delegate from the Saurian Commonwealth spoke up. "Easy words when you have a quantum field that can stop fleets. What about those of us who don't have such defenses?" "Then we help each other," Morrison said. "That's the point of these accords. If one species' borders are violated, others come to their defense. We create a mutual protection agreement, an alliance based not on conquest but on the simple principle that sovereign space is sovereign." Another delegate, this one from a species Daniel didn't recognize, stood up. And if the major empires refuse to recognize these borders, what then? Then they face all of us, Morrison said simply. Together. United. The Kthrian Empire learned that lesson at our border. I suspect other empires can learn it too. The discussions went on for days. Some species were eager to join. Others were cautious. A few were openly skeptical. But slowly, agreements took shape. Borders were mapped. Defense pacts were signed. A new framework for galactic politics emerged from the conference. Daniel spent most of his time answering questions about the quantum field. Every species wanted to know how it worked, whether they could build their own. If humanity would share the technology, we're willing to help species build defensive systems, Daniel told one group. But the specifics of the quantum field remain classified. What we can offer is general principles and guidance. Each species will need to develop defenses that work for their own technology. It was a diplomatic answer. The truth was more complex. The quantum field worked specifically against the type of advanced quantum processors that the major empires used. It wouldn't be as effective against simpler or more diverse technology. Humanity's advantage came from understanding their enemies' weaknesses and exploiting them. Near the end of the conference, Daniel received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Thelvax requested a private meeting. They met in a small room away from the main chamber. Commander Pierce, Thelvax said, I wanted to speak with you before I return to Kthrian space. Ambassador, Daniel replied, I'm surprised to see you here. As am I, Thelvax said. These accords represent a significant change to galactic politics. The Empire is not pleased with the direction things are moving. Will the Empire oppose the accords? Thelvax was quiet for a moment. The Empire is no longer in a position to oppose much of anything. Since our retreat from your border, 6 systems have declared independence. 2 more are in open revolt. The Emperor's political enemies grow stronger every day. The Empire that controlled 847 systems now struggles to hold 800. I'm sorry to hear that, Daniel said carefully. Are you? Thelvax asked. Your actions contributed to this collapse. We defended our border, Daniel replied. Nothing more. What happened after that is not our responsibility. Perhaps, Thelvax said. But tell me, Commander, when you stood at your border and told us no, did you consider the consequences? Did you think about how the galaxy might change? Daniel thought about that. Honestly? No. I was focused on holding the line, on following my orders. I didn't think about the bigger picture. Few soldiers do, Thelvax said. But you should know that what you did that day changed more than just Kthrian politics. It changed how every species views power in this galaxy. For 1,000 years, we believed that military strength determined authority. You showed us something different. You showed us that resolve can be stronger than weapons. That determination can outlast force. What will you do now? Daniel asked. I will return to my homeworld and try to help the Empire adapt to this new reality, Thelvax said. Whether I succeed or fail, I wanted you to know that I respect what you did. I may not like the consequences, but I respect the principle behind it. Your species has honor. Commander Pierce, that is a rare quality in this galaxy. The ambassador left. Daniel stood alone in the room, thinking about their conversation. Honor, resolve, determination. Were those really enough to change a galaxy? Maybe they were. The border accords were finalized on the last day of the conference. 32 species signed the agreement. They pledged to respect each other's sovereignty, to defend against border violations, and to resolve disputes through diplomacy rather than force. It wasn't perfect. Many major powers refused to participate. The Kthrian Empire rejected the accords entirely. But it was a start, a foundation for something new. Admiral Morrison addressed the delegates one final time. Today we've built something important. Not an alliance of conquest, not an empire of control, but a community of sovereign nations that respect each other's rights. The galaxy has never seen anything like this before. We're creating a new model for how species can coexist in space. Daniel watched from the back of the chamber as the delegates celebrated. He felt a strange mix of pride and worry. Pride in what humanity had accomplished. Worry about what challenges lay ahead. When he returned to Terra 9, the station felt different. It was no longer just a border outpost. It had become a symbol. The place where humanity had drawn its line and held it. Ships from across the galaxy came to see it. Some brought trade goods, others brought diplomatic proposals. A few just wanted to observe the station where history had changed. Brandon Cole approached Daniel in the corridor one day. "Sir, I've been thinking about something. Before the standoff, we were nobody, just another minor species trying to survive in a galaxy full of giants. Now everyone knows who we are. Everyone wants something from us. Is that better or worse?" Daniel considered the question. "I think it's just different. Before, we were safe because we were insignificant. Now, we're significant. Which brings different kinds of danger, but at least now we have a voice. We can influence events instead of just reacting to them." "And the quantum field?" Brandon asked. "How long before someone figures out how to counter it?" "Eventually someone will," Daniel admitted. "But by then, we'll have developed something else. That's the advantage of being underestimated for so long. We learn to think ahead, to prepare for challenges before they arrive. The major powers got comfortable with their dominance. We stayed hungry. That makes a difference." Michelle Santos was working on upgrades to the defensive grid when Daniel found her in the engineering section. "Commander, I've been running projections. If the border accords hold, we could see increased traffic through this region. More trade, more diplomatic missions. We'll need to expand the station." "Already approved," Daniel said. "Terran Command is sending construction ships next month. Terra 9 is going from an outpost to a major hub." "Because we held the line," Michelle said. "Because we held the line," Daniel agreed. That night, Daniel stood at the observation window and looked out at the border. The quantum field was invisible to the naked eye, but he knew it was there, a barrier that had changed everything. Behind him, the station hummed with activity. Crews preparing for expansion, diplomats arriving for meetings, traders negotiating deals. All of it flowing from one simple decision. The decision to say no. Amanda Foster brought him a report. "Sir, this just came in from Earth. The Council wants you to address them next month. They're calling you the defender of humanity's sovereignty." Daniel smiled slightly. "I just followed orders." "Maybe," Amanda said. "But you followed them when it would have been easier not to. When 300 ships were pointing weapons at you, that's what people remember." She left him alone with his thoughts. Daniel looked out at the stars and wondered what his parents would think if they could see him now. They had been farmers on a colony world, simple people who believed in hard work and standing by your principles. They would probably tell him to stay humble, to remember where he came from, to never forget that power comes with responsibility. Good advice. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. Not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of defending what was theirs, of drawing a line and refusing to move. Other species were learning from that example, drawing their own lines, standing firm in the face of pressure. The old empires were learning too, though more slowly. Learning that power had limits, that sovereignty mattered, that the galaxy was too big and too diverse for any one empire to control. It would take time. Change always did. There would be setbacks and challenges. Some species would reject the new order, others would test the boundaries. Violence would not disappear just because 32 species had signed an agreement. But something had begun here. Something important. A shift in how the galaxy understood itself. A recognition that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the quietest voice could be the one that changed everything. Daniel turned away from the window. He had reports to file, meetings to attend, decisions to make. The work of defending humanity's border never stopped. But now, that work meant something different. It wasn't just about keeping enemies out. It was about showing the galaxy what humans stood for. Sovereignty, dignity, The right to exist without asking permission. Terra 9 would maintain its watch. The quantum field would hold the line. And humanity would continue growing, learning, and preparing for whatever challenges came next. The border was secure. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time since leaving Earth, humanity wasn't just surviving in space. They were thriving, making their mark, earning their place among the stars. Commander Daniel Pierce returned to the bridge and got back to work.